The night my husband told me he deserved someone younger. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at the man I had built for 12 years. Realizing he was no longer mine. And the worst part? He wasn't even guilty. If you love emotional, dramatic real-life stories about betrayal, heartbreak, and powerful comebacks, make sure to like this video, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more stories every week. I was 26 when I married Daniel. He didn't have money. He didn't have status. He didn't even have stability. What he had was ambition. And I loved that about him. We started in a tiny apartment with cracked paint and neighbors who fought every night. Our sofa was secondhand. Our dining table wobbled. Some months, we had to choose which bill to pay first. But we were happy. At least, I thought we were. I believed in him when investors didn't. I encouraged him when his first business collapsed. I comforted him when his friends called him delusional. I was his biggest supporter. His backbone. His safe place. And slowly, things changed. His second business succeeded. Money started flowing. We moved into a bigger house. Bought better cars. Started attending elite events. And somewhere between struggle and success, I began disappearing. At first, it was subtle. He started caring more about appearance. Designer suits. Luxury watches. Expensive cologne I had never smelled before. Then came the gym obsession. Then came the late-night meetings. And then came the phone. Always face down. Always locked. Always buzzing at odd hours. When I asked, he'd say, "It's just work." I wanted to believe him. So I did. Because believing the truth would have meant admitting my marriage was cracking. The first time I saw her was at his company's anniversary party. Sophia. 24. Soft voice. Bright smile. Effortless confidence. She laughed at everything he said. And he looked alive around her. Not the tired husband who barely spoke at dinner. Not the distracted man who scrolled through his phone at night. Alive. I remember standing there holding my champagne glass, watching them from across the room. The way she touched his arm when she laughed. The way he didn't move it away. That's when the quiet fear started growing in my chest. That night, I asked him casually. "She seems close to you." He stiffened. "She works hard." That's it. Short answer. Sharp tone. Conversation over. And I told myself I was overthinking. Women are intuitive. But we are also skilled at self-deception when love is involved. Months passed. Distance grew. Intimacy faded. We slept in the same bed but felt like strangers. One night, I reached for him. He gently removed my hand. "I'm exhausted." I turned to the other side and stared at the wall. That was the first night I felt alone in my own marriage. The confrontation happened on an ordinary Tuesday. No dramatic music. No screaming. Just silence. I found a receipt in his jacket pocket. 2 tickets to Paris. 1 return. My stomach dropped. When he came home, I placed the receipt on the kitchen counter. He looked at it. Then at me. And something in his eyes changed. Not fear. Not panic. Relief. He exhaled slowly. "I didn't know how to tell you." "How long?" I asked. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of shared dinners. Half a year of sleeping next to me while loving someone else. I love her. Those words didn't shatter me instantly. They sank slowly. Poison through veins. I deserve to feel young again, he continued. I deserve excitement. Deserve. As if loyalty wasn't enough. As if 12 years of partnership were outdated. As if I wasn't there when you had nothing, I said quietly. He looked away. And in that moment, I understood something painful. He wasn't confused. He had already chosen. The divorce moved quickly. He had prepared. Lawyers were ready. Papers were clean. Efficient. Organized. Like our marriage had been nothing more than a contract to terminate. The house was sold. Assets divided. Friends whispered. Some blamed me. Some blamed him. Most just watched. Sophia moved in with him 2 weeks after I moved out. I know because social media made sure I saw it. Beach photos. Romantic captions. New beginnings. I stopped checking eventually. But not before it chipped away at my confidence. The lowest moment came 3 months later. I stood in my small rental apartment surrounded by unopened boxes. I looked in the mirror. And I didn't recognize myself. I wasn't just divorced. I felt replaced. Upgraded. Like I had been phase 1 of his life, and she was the improved version. That night, I cried on the floor until my chest hurt. Not because I lost him. But because I lost myself trying to build him. But pain does something unexpected. It either destroys you. Or rebuilds you. And one morning, after a sleepless night, I made a decision. If he wanted youth? Fine. If he wanted excitement? Fine. But I would not let my story end as the abandoned wife. I joined a gym. I enrolled in a business course I had postponed for years. I started therapy. I cut my hair. Not to compete with a 24-year-old. But to reconnect with the woman I was before I became someone's support system. Months passed. Slowly. Painfully. But something began shifting. I started laughing again. Sleeping better. Breathing easier. And one evening, while reviewing a business proposal at a cafe, I realized something shocking. I hadn't thought about him all day. Not once. That's when I knew. He didn't leave me broken. He left me free. 2 years later. His name lit up my phone. I was standing in my kitchen, barefoot, cutting vegetables for dinner. The apartment was quiet except for soft music playing in the background. My life had found a rhythm again, calm, stable, predictable. And then my screen glowed. Daniel calling. For a second, my heart reacted before my mind did. A quick thud. A flicker of memory. A ghost of the woman I used to be. I stared at the phone until it almost stopped ringing. 2 years. 2 full years of silence. No birthdays. No holidays. No accidental texts. Nothing. And now, a call. I wiped my hands on a towel and answered. Hello? There was a pause. Then his voice, softer than I remembered. Hey. Just that. No nickname. No warmth. Just hey. I didn't ask how he was. I didn't ask why he was calling. I simply waited. I know this is unexpected, he said. I needed to talk to you. Needed. Interesting word. I leaned against the counter. About what? Silence filled the space between us. I could hear him breathing. Hesitating. Sophia and I aren't together anymore. There it was. The update. The headline. The reason. I felt something, but it wasn't satisfaction. It wasn't joy. It was clarity. Oh, I said calmly. He seemed almost disappointed by my lack of reaction. It ended 3 months ago, he added quickly, as if details would earn him sympathy. Why? I asked. Another pause. She changed. I almost smiled. Or maybe, you just saw her clearly once the excitement wore off. We fought a lot. She said I wasn't emotionally available. That I was controlling. Controlling. The word echoed. I remembered the subtle ways he used to correct me in public. The way he'd decide things without asking. The way my opinions slowly became suggestions instead of decisions. She said I made her feel small. The irony was almost cruel. And now? I asked. I've been thinking a lot, he said. About us. Us. A word he had buried so easily 2 years ago. I made a mistake. There it was again. That word. Mistake. Like leaving 12 years behind was a wrong turn on a highway. I was caught up in everything, he continued. The attention. The excitement. The way she made me feel admired. Admired. So that was it. It wasn't love. It was ego. You didn't just leave, I said quietly. You replaced me. He exhaled slowly. I know. Do you? Do you know what it feels like to watch someone build a new life in the space you helped create? Do you know what it feels like to question your worth every time you see their smile in someone else's photos? Probably not. I miss you, he said. The words hung in the air. 2 years ago, hearing that would have shattered my resolve. Now, they felt distant. Like a song I used to love but no longer recognized. You miss what I represented, I replied calmly. What does that mean? It means you miss stability. Loyalty. Someone who believed in you before the world did. Silence. Because he knew I was right. I see you online sometimes, he admitted. There it was. The real reason. My business page had grown. My consulting firm was thriving. I had spoken at 2 industry events. I had rebuilt myself from the ground up, quietly, steadily. You look different, he said. I am. You seem happy. I am. Another long pause. I wasn't, he said softly. That sentence should have satisfied me. But it didn't. Because his unhappiness was no longer my responsibility. I thought youth meant happiness, he continued. I thought starting over would make me feel alive again. And did it? At first. Of course it did. New always feels exciting. Until it becomes normal. Until reality sets in. Until the same patterns resurface. I walked toward the window and looked at the city lights below. 2 years ago, I cried on this very floor. 2 years ago, I questioned my worth. 2 years ago, I would have begged for this call. Now, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Why are you really calling, Daniel? I asked. He hesitated. I want to see you. There it was. Not just closure. Not just apology. Access. He wanted access again. Why? I pressed gently. I don't know, he admitted. Maybe I just want to fix what I broke. Some things can't be fixed. Some things end for a reason. I'm not the same woman you left, I said quietly. I know. That's what scares me. Scares you? Yes, he continued. You don't sound hurt. You don't sound angry. I healed. The word felt powerful coming out of my mouth. He was silent again. And in that silence, I realized something important. He expected me to still be waiting. Still wounded. Still available. Daniel, I said carefully, I forgave you a long time ago. His breath shifted. But forgiveness doesn't mean return. The quiet on the other end felt heavier this time. I'm not asking to get back together, he said quickly. But his tone betrayed him. Then what are you asking? I just don't want to be strangers. We already are. You chose that when you left, I replied softly. He didn't argue. Didn't defend himself. For the first time in our entire history, he sounded unsure. Small, even. Do you ever think about us? He asked suddenly. I considered the question honestly. Not the way you think. What does that mean? I think about how much I gave. How much I lost. And how much I learned. Another silence. This one longer. Deeper. I was stupid, he whispered. Maybe. But stupidity doesn't erase damage. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said sincerely. And you? He asked. I already did. That wasn't about another man. It wasn't about revenge. It was about myself. When we hung up, I stood still for a few moments. Waiting for an emotional wave. A breakdown. Regret. Nothing came. Instead, I felt grounded. Stronger than before the call. Because this time I wasn't reacting from pain. I was responding from power. But life wasn't done teaching lessons yet. Because 3 days later, I saw him. Face to face. And he wasn't alone. I wasn't expecting to see him again so soon. 3 days after the call, I was leaving a business meeting downtown. It had gone well, better than expected. The client shook my hand twice before I walked out. I remember feeling proud. Grounded. Independent. And then I saw him. Across the street. Standing outside a cafe. Daniel. For a split second, time folded in on itself. The man I once built a life with. The man who walked away. The man who called me 3 nights ago. He looked different. Not dramatically. But subtly. There were faint lines near his eyes that I didn't remember. His shoulders seemed slightly heavier. Success still dressed him well, tailored coat, polished shoes, but something about him felt less sharp. Less certain. And then I noticed. He wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him. Not Sophia. Older than Sophia. Closer to his age. Blonde hair pulled into a low ponytail. Professional. Confident posture. They weren't touching. But they were standing close. Too close. For a moment, an old instinct tried to wake up inside me. Jealousy. Comparison. But it faded almost instantly. Because I wasn't his anymore. And he wasn't mine. He saw me. Our eyes locked. Shock crossed his face first. Then something else. Nervousness. He said something to the woman beside him and stepped away from her. And before I could decide whether to turn around or keep walking, he crossed the street toward me. Of course he did. Daniel was never good at letting things rest. Hey, he said when he reached me. Up close, I could see it clearly now. He was tired. Not physically. Emotionally. Hi, I replied calmly. The air between us felt strangely neutral. No electricity. No heartbreak. Just history. You look great, he said. I smiled politely. Thank you. There was an awkward pause before I nodded toward the cafe. Business meeting? He hesitated for half a second. Yeah. Something like that. Something like that. Interesting answer. And you? He asked quickly. Client presentation. His eyebrows lifted slightly. You're doing really well, aren't you? Yes. I didn't downplay it. I didn't soften it to protect his ego. Just yes. His eyes searched my face. Almost like he was looking for remnants of the woman he left. Maybe he expected sadness. Bitterness. Instead, he found composure. You seem different, he said again. I am. Another silence. The woman from the cafe glanced toward us. She wasn't smiling. She was observing. Calculating. She's waiting for you, I said gently. It's not what you think, he replied quickly. I almost laughed. I don't think anything. And I meant it. That seemed to unsettle him more than anger would have. She's just someone I'm working with, he added. Working with. I remembered hearing that before. The first time. About Sophia. I held his gaze for a moment longer than necessary. You don't owe me explanations anymore. The truth landed heavier than I expected. Because once upon a time I demanded explanations. Now, I didn't require them. He shifted slightly, lowering his voice. I've been thinking about what you said. About? About going backwards. I waited. I don't want to go backwards, he continued. I just don't want to lose you completely. Lose me? You already did. But I didn't say that. Instead, I studied him carefully. And for the first time I saw it clearly. It wasn't love pulling him back toward me. It was regret. Regret mixed with ego. The realization that the woman he replaced had upgraded herself. And now she was out of reach. Daniel, I said quietly, what exactly are you looking for? He hesitated. Honesty wrestled with pride in his expression. I don't know, he admitted finally. That was the most truthful thing he had said all afternoon. You thought starting over would solve something, I continued gently. But you carried yourself into the new relationship. He looked at me sharply. As if I had exposed something. She said the same thing, he murmured. Of course she did. Patterns don't disappear with new faces. The woman from the cafe called his name. Not loudly. But firmly. He glanced back at her. Then at me. I don't want to make the same mistake again, he said. Then don't, I replied. It was simple. Painfully simple. Growth isn't about returning. It's about evolving. He stepped closer, not enough to invade my space, but enough to lower his voice further. Do you ever think we could have fixed it? There it was. The question that always comes too late. I considered it honestly. We could have, I said. His eyes flickered with hope. If you had chosen to. The hope faded. Because that was the truth. He didn't fight for us. He chased novelty instead. A breeze passed between us, lifting a strand of my hair. For a brief second, we looked like strangers having a polite conversation. And maybe that's what we were now. I'm glad you're doing well, he said finally. And I hope you are too, I replied. Not sarcastically. Not bitterly. Just neutrally. He nodded. Then stepped back. I should go. Yes, I said. And that was it. No dramatic goodbye. No lingering touch. Just distance. As I walked away, I didn't look back. But I felt it. His gaze following me. Not with possession. Not with authority. With realization. He left a woman who built him. And returned to find a woman who no longer needed him. And for the first time since the divorce, I didn't feel replaced. I felt irreplaceable. That night, I slept peacefully. But I had no idea that the real twist wasn't over. Because a week later, I would receive a message that changed everything I thought I understood about why he really left. I always believed betrayal comes with screaming, slammed doors, and obvious lies. But the worst betrayal? It comes quietly. It sits across from you at breakfast. It smiles while hiding everything. Before we continue, if you connect with stories about heartbreak, betrayal, and finding strength again, make sure you like and comment what you would have done in my place. Your thoughts matter more than you think. The night I found those hotel receipts, I didn't confront Daniel immediately. I wanted proof. Not suspicion. Not emotion. Proof. For 2 weeks, I watched him. He started working late every Tuesday and Thursday. He guarded his phone like it was a classified document. He began going to the gym at 9 p.m. Daniel hated night workouts. One Thursday, I did something I never thought I would do. I followed him. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my car keys. I kept my headlights low and stayed 3 cars behind him. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it over the engine. He didn't go to the gym. He parked outside a small apartment complex on the other side of town. And then, she walked out. Blonde hair. Tall. Confident. She kissed him before he even got out of the car. Not a friendly kiss. Not confusion. Familiar. Intimate. My world went silent. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember climbing into bed. I just remember staring at the ceiling until sunrise. The next morning, he kissed my forehead like nothing had happened. Big presentation today, he said casually. Wish me luck. I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who had promised forever. This man who held my hand when we signed the mortgage papers. This man who told me I was his safe place. And he lied so easily. Good luck, I whispered. Because I wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead of confronting him, I hired a private investigator. It felt dramatic. Extreme. But I needed the full truth. Within 10 days, I had it. Her name was Clara. She wasn't just a random affair. She was his coworker. And it had been going on for 8 months. 8 months. That meant while we were celebrating our anniversary. While we were planning a baby. While I was crying about my mother's health scare. He was with her. But that wasn't the part that broke me. The investigator included copies of messages. Daniel had told her we were basically separated. He told her I was emotionally unstable. He told her I refused to give him a divorce because I was afraid to be alone. I felt like I was reading about a stranger. Was this how he saw me? Or was this just the story he needed to tell to justify himself? That night, I didn't cry. I felt something colder. Clarity. I invited him to dinner. I cooked his favorite meal, garlic butter salmon with roasted potatoes. I even lit candles. He smiled when he walked in. This is nice, he said. What's the occasion? I poured him a glass of wine. Then I placed the envelope on the table. What's this? He asked. Open it. He laughed at first. Then he stopped laughing. The color drained from his face as he flipped through the photos. The hotel entries. The timestamps. The messages. He looked up at me like a trapped animal. I can explain. Of course. They always can. Go ahead, I said calmly. It was just physical at first, he rushed. It didn't mean anything. I was confused. We've been distant lately. You've been stressed. I didn't feel wanted. There it was. Blame. I didn't mean for it to go this far, he continued. I was going to end it. When? I asked quietly. He didn't answer. Because he didn't have one. Then he said something I'll never forget. I didn't think you'd ever find out. Not I'm sorry. Not I was wrong. Not I hurt you. Just. I didn't think you'd find out. In that moment, I realized something painful. He wasn't sorry he cheated. He was sorry he got caught. I want a divorce, I said. He blinked. Wait, what? I want a divorce. Don't be dramatic, he snapped. We can fix this. We? I repeated. He reached for my hand. I pulled it back. I deserve honesty, I said. I deserve respect. And I deserve someone who doesn't rewrite my personality to impress another woman. He got angry then. Accused me of overreacting. Said I was throwing away years over a mistake. But an 8-month affair isn't a mistake. It's a choice. Repeated. Deliberate. That night, he packed a bag. He didn't beg. He didn't cry. He left. And for the first time in months, the house felt peaceful. But the real storm hadn't even started. 3 days later, Clara messaged me. Yes. Me. I didn't know the truth, she wrote. He told me you were separated. I found out everything when he moved in with me. Moved in. With her. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because the man who told me I was overreacting had already moved his clothes into another woman's closet. Clara asked to meet. Part of me wanted to refuse. But another part needed to look her in the eye. We met at a quiet cafe. She looked nervous. You deserve the truth, she said. And what she told me next changed everything. Daniel wasn't just cheating. He was drowning in debt. Credit cards I didn't know about. Loans he hid. Money he borrowed in both our names. My stomach dropped. The affair wasn't just betrayal. It was distraction. He had been living a double life in more ways than one. I went home and opened every financial statement I could find. And there it was. Over $80,000 in hidden debt. I felt sick. Not because of the money, but because I had shared a life with someone who was capable of this level of deception. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Not just for divorce. For protection. Because suddenly, this wasn't just heartbreak. It was survival. If you think betrayal is just about cheating, it's not. It's about broken trust in every form. And I was about to learn just how deep that break really went. I thought catching him cheating was the worst part. I was wrong. The worst part was realizing I never really knew him at all. If you've ever trusted someone with your whole heart and later discovered you were loving a version of them that didn't exist, take a deep breath with me. You're not alone. The morning after I found out about the $80,000 debt, I sat at my kitchen table with every bank statement spread out in front of me. Highlighters. Notes. Screenshots. It felt like I was investigating a stranger. Except the stranger was my husband. Credit cards I had never seen. A personal loan taken out 6 months ago. 2 missed mortgage payments that he had told me were processing delays. Processing delays. I almost laughed at how stupid that sounded now. The lawyer confirmed my worst fear. Because some accounts were joint, I could legally be responsible for part of the debt. My hands went cold. I wasn't just divorcing a cheater. I was untangling myself from financial ruin. Daniel called that evening. I think we should talk, he said. His voice sounded softer than usual. almost fragile. I agreed to meet him, but not at the house. We met at a park near our old apartment, back when we were newly married and still believed love was enough. He looked different. Tired. Unshaven. Smaller. I messed up, he started. That's a summary, I replied. He ran his hands through his hair. The debt got out of control. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought I could fix it before you noticed. So you opened more credit cards? I asked calmly. I was trying to keep us afloat. By lying? He didn't answer. Because there was no answer. Then he said something that almost made me feel sorry for him. I felt like I was failing you. Failing me. I would have stood beside him through any financial hardship. But he didn't give me the chance. Instead, he built a fantasy life with another woman where he could pretend he wasn't drowning. Clara wasn't just an affair. She was escape. Did you love her? I asked. He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. I don't know, he admitted. But I knew. He loved how she made him feel, admired, impressive, untouched by responsibility. With me, he had bills. Real life. History. With her, he had ego. I want to fix this, he said suddenly. I'll end it. I'll go to therapy. We can rebuild. Rebuild. As if we were discussing a cracked wall. Not a demolished foundation. You already moved in with her, I reminded him. That was temporary. Temporary. Just like his loyalty. I filed for divorce, I told him. The silence between us stretched heavy. You're serious? He whispered. Yes. He looked shocked. And that's when I understood something dangerous. He never believed I would leave. He thought I would cry. Beg. Forgive. Stay. He had mistaken my kindness for weakness. The legal process began quickly. And that's when his tone changed. Suddenly, he wasn't apologetic anymore. He was defensive. Aggressive. He tried to argue that some of the debt was shared marital responsibility. He suggested selling the house. He implied I had overspent in the past. Overspent. I had been buying groceries while he was financing hotel rooms. The audacity was almost impressive. Then came the court mediation. Seeing him across that table felt surreal. This man once held my face in his hands and promised forever. Now he avoided eye contact while his lawyer discussed numbers like we were dividing furniture, not dismantling a life. Clara didn't last long, by the way. 3 weeks after he moved in, she asked him to leave. Turns out, once the fantasy met reality, the debt, the divorce, the stress, she wasn't interested. He tried calling me the night she kicked him out. I didn't answer. But the real breaking point came when my lawyer uncovered something else. Daniel had used part of the loan money to invest in a business opportunity. An opportunity that didn't exist. It was a scam. He had sent thousands to a fake investment platform. I stared at the documents in disbelief. He wasn't just dishonest. He was reckless. And instead of admitting fear, he chose ego. One evening, I sat alone in the house, technically still ours, and looked around at the framed photos. Vacations. Birthdays. Holidays. I used to think those moments proved our love was real. Now I realized something painful. The moments were real. But the man beside me in them? He was performing. Performing stability. Performing confidence. Performing commitment. And I had fallen in love with the performance. The court eventually ruled that the majority of the secret debt would remain his responsibility since it was concealed and used without my knowledge. The relief I felt wasn't joy. It was survival. But financially surviving didn't mean emotionally healing. Because at night, when the house was quiet, doubt crept in. How did I not see it? How did I miss the signs? Was I naive, or just in love? One afternoon, Daniel showed up unannounced. He looked worse than before. I made a mistake, he said. Clara was never you. I didn't invite him inside. You didn't lose me because of her, I said calmly. You lost me because of you. He swallowed hard. I can change. Maybe he could. But I had changed too. And that was the difference. I hope you do, I told him. Just not with me. For the first time since everything collapsed. I felt strong. Not because I stopped loving him overnight. But because I finally chose myself. Divorce papers were finalized 2 months later. Just like that, years of marriage reduced to signatures and stamps. I expected to feel broken. Instead, I felt lighter. But I didn't know yet that the real transformation, the one that would redefine my entire life, was still coming. Because losing a husband was one thing. Rediscovering myself? That was something else entirely. I used to think divorce was the end of a story. Turns out, it was the beginning of mine. If you've ever felt like your world collapsed and you didn't know who you were without someone, stay with me. Because sometimes losing everything is the only way you finally find yourself. The day the divorce was finalized, I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry either. I sat in my car outside the courthouse and just breathed. For the first time in years, I wasn't someone's wife. I wasn't someone trying to hold together a sinking ship. I was just me. And that terrified me. Because I had built my identity around being us. Our house. Our plans. Our future children's names. Now it was just silence. The first few weeks alone were strange. The house felt bigger. Quieter. I kept expecting to hear his keys at the door. But instead of breaking, something unexpected happened. Peace settled in. No lies. No tension. No pretending everything was fine. Just truth. And truth, even when painful, is lighter than deception. I started therapy. Not because I was weak. But because I refused to carry wounds into my next chapter. My therapist asked me a question that changed everything. When did you start shrinking? Shrinking. I had never thought about it that way. But she was right. Somewhere along the marriage, I had become smaller. I stopped voicing concerns to avoid arguments. I ignored red flags to keep harmony. I doubted my instincts because trusting him felt easier than trusting myself. I didn't just lose a husband. I had lost parts of me. And now I wanted them back. So I did something bold. I sold the house. Every corner held memories, some beautiful, some painful. But I didn't want to heal where I had been lied to. I moved into a smaller apartment downtown. Minimal furniture. Fresh walls. No history. It felt like a reset button. Then came the scariest step. I quit my safe but uninspiring job. For years, I had dreamed of starting my own event planning business. I loved organizing, creating experiences, bringing people together. But I always told myself, maybe later. When things are more stable. When Daniel feels secure. Now? There was no Daniel. There was only me. And for the first time, I didn't need permission. The first 3 months were brutal. Savings were tight. Clients were few. Self-doubt was loud. There were nights I lay awake wondering if I had lost my mind. Divorced. Starting over. Financially rebuilding. But every time fear whispered, I remembered something. I survived betrayal. I survived humiliation. I survived watching my marriage collapse. Starting a business? That was nothing compared to that. And slowly, things began to shift. A small birthday event turned into a referral. A referral turned into a corporate booking. A corporate booking turned into a contract. Within a year, I was earning more than I ever had in my old job. But the money wasn't the real victory. Confidence was. For the first time, I trusted my own decisions. Then something unexpected happened. Daniel emailed me. Not to reconcile. Not to argue. To apologize. A real apology. No excuses. No blame. No manipulation. He admitted he had spiraled after the divorce. Therapy. Financial counseling. Reality. I didn't lose you because I was unhappy, he wrote. I lost you because I was insecure. Reading that didn't hurt. It didn't trigger anger. It just felt distant. Like a chapter 1 had already finished. I replied with one sentence. I hope you become the man you needed to be. And that was it. No dramatic closure. No emotional collapse. Just peace. About 18 months after the divorce, I was hired to plan a wedding. Yes. A wedding. The irony wasn't lost on me. Standing in that venue during rehearsal, watching the bride walk down the aisle, I felt something surprising. Not jealousy. Not bitterness. Strength. Because I knew now that marriage isn't about fairy tales. It's about integrity. And if integrity isn't there, walking away is braver than staying. People often ask me if I regret anything. I regret ignoring my intuition. I regret believing love alone could fix dishonesty. But I don't regret leaving. Because leaving forced me to grow. It forced me to rebuild my finances, my confidence, my identity. It forced me to meet the strongest version of myself. 2 years ago, I was a woman sitting at a kitchen table staring at $80,000 in secret debt. Today, I run a successful business. I travel. I sleep peacefully. And I no longer confuse chaos with passion. Sometimes the worst day of your life becomes the reason your best life begins. And if you're in the middle of heartbreak right now, please hear me. The end of a marriage is not the end of you. It might just be the start of the person you were always meant to become. But there's one final chapter left. Because moving on didn't just change my career. It changed my heart. I didn't plan to fall in love again. After everything that happened, I told myself I was done. Done with promises. Done with forever. Done with trusting someone enough to hurt me. But life has a strange way of rewriting plans you think are permanent. If you've ever sworn you'd never open your heart again, keep reading. Because healing doesn't mean your story is over. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. I was overseeing a corporate charity gala, one of the biggest events my company had booked so far. I was focused. Confident. In control. That's when I met him. His name was Aaron. He was part of the nonprofit board hosting the event. Calm. Observant. The kind of man who listened more than he spoke. At first, he was just another client contact. Professional. Polite. But during the event setup, the florist delivered the wrong arrangements. Everything was chaos for about 20 minutes. I was solving problems, giving instructions, fixing timelines. Aaron stood nearby and quietly said, "You handle pressure really well." It wasn't flirtatious. It was genuine. And for some reason, that meant more. After the event ended successfully, he emailed me to thank me for my work. Then a week later, he asked if I'd like to grab coffee, strictly to discuss future collaboration, he added. I almost said no. Dating felt like stepping onto thin ice. But something inside me, the same intuition I once ignored, felt calm. So I said yes. Our first coffee lasted 3 hours. Not because of chemistry fireworks. But because of conversation. Real conversation. He asked about my business, and actually listened. He asked about my divorce, not for gossip, but for understanding. I told him the truth. Not the polished version. Not the I'm totally fine version. The real one. He didn't try to rescue me. He didn't criticize my ex. He simply said, that must have been incredibly painful. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. Empathy feels different than intensity. With Daniel, everything was big and passionate and dramatic. With Aaron, it felt steady. Safe. But healing isn't linear. There were moments I pulled back. If he didn't text for a few hours, my mind tried to create old patterns. If he sounded distracted, I wondered if I was being replaced. Trauma doesn't disappear just because someone new is kind. One evening, I almost sabotaged it. He canceled dinner because of a work emergency. Old fear rushed in. I typed a message, it's fine. I'm used to being last priority. I stared at the screen. Then I deleted it. Instead, I wrote, no worries. Hope everything goes well. Later that night, he called, not texted, to apologize and reschedule. Consistency. Not chaos. That was new for me. Months passed. Slowly. Intentionally. No rushing. No grand promises. Just small, steady proof. He introduced me to his friends. He spoke openly about finances. He never hit his phone. The bare minimum, yet somehow extraordinary after what I had known before. One night, we were walking downtown after dinner. City lights reflecting off the pavement. He stopped and looked at me carefully. I know you've been hurt, he said. I don't want to replace your past. I just want to build something honest. Honest. That word used to feel fragile. Now it felt sacred. For the first time since my divorce, I allowed myself to imagine a future again. Not a fantasy. Not a fairy tale. Just partnership. And the most surprising part? I wasn't afraid of being alone anymore. That's why I knew this was different. I didn't need him to complete me. I chose him. There's power in that difference. A year after we started dating, Aaron attended one of my largest events, a luxury wedding at a seaside venue. As I watched the bride walk down the aisle, I felt peaceful. Not because I believed in perfect love, but because I believed in healthy love. Later that night, Aaron took my hand and said quietly, you turned your worst chapter into something beautiful. He wasn't talking about the wedding. He was talking about me. Sometimes people ask me if I'd erase my marriage if I could. No. Because that heartbreak built the woman standing here today. The woman who trusts her instincts. The woman who protects her peace. The woman who knows that love without respect is not love at all. 2 years ago, I was drowning in betrayal and hidden debt. Today, I run a thriving business. I sleep peacefully. And I'm loved in a way that feels calm, not chaotic. If you're in the middle of your own heartbreak, please remember this. Being left, cheated on, or betrayed does not reduce your value. It reveals theirs. Your comeback might not look loud. It might not be revenge. It might simply be peace. And sometimes, peace is the most powerful ending of all.